So here is how I'm trying to make a magazine style menu screen. The idea is when the player goes into menu, it flips through the pages, and when you flip from screen to screen, there's a page flipping animation. I'm doing it in perhaps an awkward way. There may be a better way of doing it. So first, let's go into a inventory screen. As you can see here is a big white flash. That white flash only appears for a millisecond before it loads in the page, and what it's doing is it's transitioning from the animation, which has no set data on it, to the screen that has all the data on it. And this is where you'll see the character portraits, you'll see what area they're in, you'll see their name and all that kind of stuff. But if I go into my character names area, it's actually where I have all the information about my characters. I do have the character name image here, the visible button. That's what would happen. You'd see their name written there instead of the word name. Taking that off, I'm also going to take the character portrait and cover it up with a dummy portrait. You also notice that in the background there are several other colors. That's because I've put page objects, background page objects, behind the main page object, so that the player sees that there's other pages there. So we'll do a snip. I'm going to capture all this. We'll get rid of the gray afterwards, just using the graphics tool like that. Alright, next step, we're going to need to capture the destination page. So I can see that page 2 in my document is the items page. So we're going to go over here to the items page. We'll cut straight to the part where I did the snip. Alright, so now I'm going to snip the next bit, which is this cleaned up item screen. Again, none of the details are on here. Player won't really notice that because the animation will go by relatively quickly. Alright, so now I've taken all 3 images and I've dropped them into Sony Vegas. Now you can use any editing software you like. You can even animate it by hand if you like. But what I'm going to do is, for simplicity's sake, I'm going to create a transition between these 3 images. Alright, and I've dropped in a page peel transition. But let's change the angle, because what we want is something that doesn't flip up, because you see it disappears off the top of the screen. So we're just going to change the angle to be flat. So when it goes across, you're going to see a flat transition like that. And let's get the light color to be just black, so that when it flaps, there won't be this shiny effect on it. It'll just be a black backdrop that we can stretch out or we can remove pretty easily. So now you got a nice page flipping animation from screen to screen. Again, you won't see that these screens are blank, at least not long enough to make out any details, because we're going to add that white flash to the effect. So now let's take just the transition sequence and we're going to export that as a series of images. We'll use a PNG format because it's relatively flexible. So we have all the individual images, and I've gone to Kochak Images Sprite Sheet Generator. You can find your own sprite sheet generator or do it your own way, and I have created a sprite sheet out of the animation by dragging the files in. There are many other sprite sheet generators, or you can do it manually. I'm then going to download the sprite sheet. I tried to keep the number of frames down low. In this case, I've tried to keep it down to 15. And you'll see why in a moment. It's a limitation in RPGArchitect. So if we go in, what I've already done here is I've taken the liberty of adding this animation on top of the screen. So now if I close these 2 items, you'll see that here is the item screen, and then here is the animation playing over top of it. The reason why I've done this and created a sprite sheet animation for it rather than adding an animation is you can't play, currently anyway, you can't play animations over top of UI elements in RPGArchitect. So creating an animation won't work. You can add individual graphics and put them over top and put them one by one with timing in between. It's a little bit awkward, so instead I'm just using this page anim object. I've added a script that after 420 milliseconds, it removes the visibility of the page anim, so that what should happen is the animation should appear, it should play for about 420 milliseconds, and then disappear. Now there is a slight variation in the color that I could probably edit to get a bit better. But what I've done is I've created an animation for the sticker book to flop on, and a second animation for it to flop off again. So in other words, there's an animation that plays for it to flop into place, and one for it to flop off. So when you open the picture book, it's going to play the animations that I've set up. So let's give it a try right now. We'll go into the game. Again, I've taken all these graphics, I've put them into a sprite animation. Let's go to the game. We will open up the menu. There you go. And we'll go to the item screen, and it'll flip over to the next page. Now, there's probably a more efficient way of making this work, but it plays when you open the menu screen, and an animation that plays when you close it, and I'm using a screen transition effect to make it work.